The first problem, one problem and inconvenience of expanding the campus is deforestation. The school will have to cut down trees in order to make more space. When they cut the trees, they will be cutting off many species and killing many organisms. The community will shrink and possibly migrate to a different place. Organisms that live in trees, like birds, squirrels, and bugs, will have to adapt to a new place. A solution is for every tree you cut, plant a lot more in the same area so that the ecosystem can stay in that area but just move trees. The second problem, noise pollution from machines that are building the expansion will disturb many habitats, causing them to move away. Also, noise coming from the added car line will scare many organisms away and perhaps hurt their hearing. In an extreme case, a predator may become irritable or scared, so it will try to kill prey. A way to resolve this is to tell people to stop their cars when they are waiting in line. They also can tell people to stop honking. The third problem, trash pollution, is when there is a lot of litter and unnecessary waste all over. This is inevitable because there will be more people around the area. Students may drop stuff in the expanded car line or drop something outside of one of the new classrooms. This may hurt the habitat because if a student drops a food item that is toxic to animals, the animal may eat or drink it, causing it to become sick or die. If a student drops a piece of plastic and an animal gets stuck in it, or if it gets stuck around its neck, they may suffocate. A simple way to resolve this is to add more trash cans everywhere so that people won't just drop things on the floor. Also, enforcing the rule of no littering will definitely help to save many organisms. Air pollution is a very large effect and consequence of this new expansion. For example, we are adding a new car line, so obviously the smoke and exhaust from cars is going to significantly affect the environment and air. The organisms breathe too much of the smoke and suffocate, especially younger organisms with weaker lungs. It may also affect the growth of plants, which is a primary producer where the food chain starts, so after a while, animals may starve. A way to stop air pollution is similar to the way to stop noise pollution. Tell people to turn off their cars when waiting in line. By doing this, less pollution goes into the air. The fifth problem, soil pollution, includes dropping trash in the soil and harming the animals, which is similar to trash pollution. A common situation is if while building the expansion or if from the cars gas and toxic chemicals spill onto the soil, really harming the organisms and population living in the soil or depending on the organisms that live in the soil. There is not much of a way to stop this except for being extra cautious when pouring toxic liquids and to regularly clean the soil from litter. Algae and lichen are pioneer species because without them, any ecosystem couldn't start. They are primary producers or the start of the food web, so other organisms would starve without them. Also, they are the ones that start the growing of most plants. For example, they decompose nutrients into the ground so that soil is rich and other plants can grow. Primary succession is when an area doesn't have many organisms, mostly only soil and some plants. The area where the expansion is occurring is not an example of primary succession because many organisms already live there. Secondary succession is when an area that previously lost all of its organisms because of perhaps a tornado or snow and it is starting to rebuild. Natural selection is the adaptation of a species to fit its environment over time. For example, a stick bug looks exactly like an actual stick. This really helps it hide from predators because they don't know the difference between the stick and the bug, so it rarely ever gets caught. Many organisms do this to protect itself from predators. An example of competition is when trees that are all near each other are fighting for the best angle of sunlight. The trees will grow into different and abnormal ways just to make sure they get enough sunlight and get more than all others. Competition is just when some organisms fight or compete to get their resource or whatever they need. This picture shows predation because you can see the remains of deer bones. This deer was most likely eaten by a predator because only its bones were left. Predation is when one organism uses another organism for food. Most people are predators when we eat meat. An example that we got the chance to directly observe is termites living on or around trees. The termites use the tree as shelter and food and a lot of things, but the tree becomes weaker from all the holes in it. It also takes away a lot of its nutrients and cuts off its roots, which is where it gets its source of food. Parasitism is basically an organism on or in another organism causing a harm, but that organism that is living or on it benefits. Direct observation is when you view or observe an organism with your own eyes as opposed to indirect observation where you observe it from a picture or research. For example, if you are watching termites eat a tree, then you are direct observing, but if you see a picture of a termite eating a tree, that is indirect observation. This method is probably one of the most complicated when you're trying to determine the population size because it may take a while to count the population and is not guaranteed 100% success. A limiting factor in the forest is water because many organisms depend on it, but it can run out. The organization of life starts with a cell and then moves to a tissue, organ system, and organism. This shrub represents the organization of life. This organism lives in a population with the entire species of shrubs. It is also among a community in an ecosystem.